Imagine this. You've trained for months, you've put in the hours, you've shown up ready. And then race day comes and your machine simply cannot keep up. You pin the throttle on a long straight and all you see are the backs of other riders pulling further and further away. That's the reality Jack Miller is living right now with Yamaha. And what makes this story even more compelling is that Miller himself came out and said it. No filter, no spin. He described the feeling as being like a lamb to the slaughter. Today we're diving deep into exactly what's going wrong at Yamaha in the 2026 MotoGP season, how bad the situation truly is, and whether there's any real light at the end of this tunnel. Stay with us until the very end because we've got a cracking question for you in the comments, and we genuinely want to hear what you think. Let's start with the facts, because the facts here are pretty uncomfortable. Heading into the 2026 season, Yamaha arrived with what should have been a bold and exciting new chapter. A completely redesigned M1 built around a brand new V4 engine. On paper, it sounded like exactly the kind of ambitious leap a great manufacturer makes when they're serious about fighting back. Yamaha has a proud and storied history in this sport. The Rossi years, the Lorenzo years. This is a mark that knows how to win at the highest level. But out on track, the reality has been sobering. At the U.S. Grand Prix in Austin, all four Yamaha M1s found themselves circulating at the very back of the field. Toprak Razgatlioglu, a former world superbike champion stepping up to MotoGP as a rookie, a man with extraordinary natural talent, was the best of the Yamaha quartet, and he came home in 15th place. 15th. For a manufacturer of Yamaha's stature, that's not just disappointing, that's a crisis. The most glaring weakness is pure straight-line speed. Austin has some of the longest straights on the calendar, and it exposed Yamaha brutally. Alex Rins topped out at just 342.4 kilometers per hour on the speed trap. Already worrying. But Quartararo and Razgatlioglu were even slower, more than 10 kilometers per hour behind the fastest riders on the grid. In a sport where tenths of a second decide everything, 10 kilometers per hour on a straight is not a gap, it's a chasm. Fabio Quartararo, a man who has given years of his career to Yamaha and genuinely loves the brand, put it bluntly. The bike currently has no single strong point, not one area where it clearly leads. Historically, Yamaha's M1 was celebrated for its sublime handling, its corner entry precision, its ability to let a talented rider extract something special through the technical sections, but those qualities have been diluted by the massive architectural changes that came with the V4 transition. They've lost their old strengths without yet unlocking the new ones. This is where Jack Miller becomes the most fascinating figure in this whole story. Miller has always been the kind of rider who says what he means. He's not a man who sits in front of a microphone and gives you carefully managed corporate answers. When something is wrong, he'll tell you. And at Austin, he told us. He described the sensation of opening the throttle on a long straight with that Yamaha beneath him as feeling like a lamb to the slaughter. Utterly exposed, with nothing to fight back with. Every time he hit the back straight, he said it was happening all over again. You could see it play out in the sprint race. Miller found himself in a battle with Franco Morbidelli, who was aboard a Ducati for VR46. Miller actually held his own impressively through the technical section, scrapping hard despite struggling with tire pressure. He got a good move in, got himself in front, and it genuinely looked competitive for a moment. Then the straight arrived. Morbidelli simply drove past him. Not because Miller made a mistake, not because his tires gave up, but because on a straight, there was absolutely nothing Miller could do. The physics just didn't allow it. What makes Miller worth listening to, though, is that he hasn't collapsed into despair. He's one of the more optimistic voices in the Yamaha garage, and by the end of the Austin weekend, he was actually feeling more positive than at any other point this season. He felt a genuine improvement in his own pace through the latter stages of the race. In the grand scheme of things, Yamaha are still miles off the pace. But Miller is looking for the small wins, building something, refusing to be defeated by the situation. To properly understand where Yamaha are right now, you need to understand the timeline of how this V4 project came to exist. Yamaha made the formal announcement of their switch to a V4 layout at the Valencia finale in November 2025, the very last race of the previous season. That left an extraordinarily tight window to design, build, test, and refine an entirely new motorcycle before the 2026 season began. Miller acknowledged this directly, and it's worth sitting with for a moment. He said the first major milestone for Yamaha this year was simply getting 4 bikes onto the grid at race 1, just getting the bikes there. That alone was an achievement given the circumstances, but once those bikes were out on track, the data started flooding in. The riders started feeding back. And, as Miller put it with characteristic bluntness, everything was either this is rubbish or that is rubbish. That's what riders do. They push the boundaries and tell you where the limits are. The challenge for Yamaha's engineers is then deciphering what those complaints actually mean in technical terms and translating them into meaningful development. And they're trying to do all of this while the championship is already in full flight, points are being scored, and the leaders are pulling away. Miller said something that really stuck. You are extremely naive if you think a project like this is going to work straight out of the box, and he's absolutely right. Moving from an inline-4 configuration to a V4 isn't a tweak or a refresh. It's a fundamental reimagining of what the motorcycle is. The weight distribution changes, the power delivery character changes, the way the chassis loads and responds through corners changes. Everything is different, and everything needs to be learned again from scratch. Under race conditions, with the whole world watching. The championship, as Miller reminded everyone, slows down for nobody. Here's where the story gets at least a little more encouraging. The MotoGP calendar this year has an unusual gap. The Qatar Grand Prix was moved to November due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, which has given Yamaha a window of several weeks to push development harder before the European season opens at Jerez on the 24th to 26th of April. Miller was fairly specific about what's coming, or at least what he's hoping for. A new swing arm, a new chassis, some adjustments to the engine. These aren't minor cosmetic tweaks. If delivered properly, they could meaningfully change the character of the bike. There's also a post-race test at Jerez, which could be enormously valuable, especially as rival manufacturers are beginning to redirect engineering resources toward their 2027 prototypes. For Yamaha, the window to improve this year's bike is still open, but it won't be open forever. Back in Japan, a significant number of engineers, including Italian staff who have relocated temporarily, are working intensively on development. Miller described it as desperate times, and indeed it is, but desperation, when channeled correctly, can also be a powerful engine of progress. Some of the most important breakthroughs in motorsport have come from teams with their backs firmly against the wall. The question is whether Yamaha can translate that urgency into tangible performance gains before the season slips too far away from them. The gap to the front runners is significant, but it is not, at this stage, completely insurmountable. At least not in the medium term. Right, before we wrap this up, here's what we'd love you to do. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what's really going on inside the Yamaha garage, hit the like button right now. It makes a massive difference to how this channel grows and reaches more MotoGP fans like yourself. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive. And most importantly, drop your answer in the comments section below. Do you believe Yamaha can genuinely break into the top 10 consistently before this season is over? Or is 2026 simply a write-off while they rebuild for 2027? We read every single comment, and the most thoughtful ones get a proper reply from us.